Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 2026 ACUHO-I Annual Business Meeting. I am happy to call this meeting to order at 4:06 p.m. U.S. Eastern Daylight Time, excuse me. I've appointed Derek Jackson, who currently serves as our Association Vice President, as the parliamentarian for today's meeting. I want to thank Derek for agreeing to that role. You should have received meeting packets via email, or you can go to the ACUHO-I website annual meeting page. The link to the meeting materials has been placed in the chat. We are now in the 6th year of hosting the annual business meeting virtually, which is always held in the first quarter. Using this format allows us to connect the meeting more closely to the fiscal year end on December 31st, and to have all professionals from member institutions join the meeting. One of our annual business meeting traditions is that at the end of the meeting, we will recognize those who are retired or deceased. If anyone has additions to the list, they can submit them using the link to the sheet in the chat. It's our honor to speak their names into this community gathering today. And as we transition into the agenda, I just wanted to take a moment to continue to happen on behalf of the association. Over the past year, your executive board has been engaged in very thoughtful conversations about the future of our profession and the role ACUHO-I must play in supporting housing and residential leaders across many different institutional contexts, especially considering the significant economic, social, and political changes that are occurring. A key part of that work has been advancing our Future of the Profession initiative, which asks us to look beyond the immediate moment and consider how our association can best prepare the field for the opportunities and challenges ahead. I'm excited that you'll hear more about this work during today's meeting and including in Mary's report, Cassie's report, etc. But for now, please know the executive board remains deeply committed to thoughtful leadership and ensuring ACUHO-I continues to serve as a strong professional home for our members. With that, we'll move into the agenda for the annual business meeting. And I'd like to begin by asking Mary DeNiro, our CEO, to join me in the spotlight for this call. I'd like to introduce to you the 2026 ACUHO-I Executive Board. They are the leaders that set the strategic direction for ACUHO-I, and it's an honor to be able to serve with them. Michael Griffel, ACUHO-I President-elect. Derek Jackson, ACUHO-I Vice President. Dee Allard, our Residence Education Director. Stephanie Carter-Atkins, our Regional Affiliations Director. Jeff Cooper, Business Practices and Enhancements Director. Marion Gray, Globalization Director. Brenda Ice, Workforce Development Director. Barry Olson, Facilities and Physical Environment Director. Janie Sacco, the Knowledge Enhancement Director. Aramis Watson, Inclusion and Equity Director. Liz LaPote-Clark, our Ex Officio Housing and Business Officer Collaboration Director, and we're pleased to have her join us as part of NACUBO. Chandra Myrick, our Ex Officio Student Success Director. And Mary DeNiro, our ACUHO-I CEO and Executive Director, Ex Officio. Lastly, it is my pleasure to introduce Kirsten Kennedy, our Finance and Corporate Records Officer. Kirsten will report on the registration, on the registrations and current attendance at today's meeting. Kirsten, floor is yours.
We are pleased to welcome you to today's meeting. Based on registration, we will report on the number of attendees, and then the actual number will be reflected in the meeting minutes for next year. So registered attendees at today's business meeting is 243. We expect some members to join us during the course of the meeting. For voting purposes, as stated in the ACUHO-I Constitution, any vote related to amending the Constitution must receive 2/3 of the quorum to pass. Luckily, all other business items are approved by a simple majority, including the one item that needs to be voted on today, the 2025 annual business meeting minutes. The minutes from the 2025 annual business meeting were emailed to the voting delegates in attendance last year, asking for corrections and feedback. They were then shared with the executive board, which operates as the minutes approval committee. They complete the final review and approve the minutes before being brought forward to the full membership during this meeting. Are there any objections to the 2025 annual business meeting minutes as distributed? Please use the Zoom menu to raise your hand if you have an objection. Okay, seeing no objections, I will now ask for a motion to approve the 2025 annual business meeting minutes as distributed. To offer, please use the Zoom menu to raise your hand. Can anyone, I can't see the raised.
We had a motion by Jim Whitaker.
from which institution? Do you know?
And I have Jim can be unmuted now to share that motion.
From UMass Lowell.
Jim Whitaker from UMass Lowell. Thank you. I now need to ask for a second to the motion to approve the distributed 2025 annual business meeting minutes. To offer a motion, again, please use the Zoom menu to raise your hand now.
And we have a second from Alan Blattner.
At UNC Chapel Hill. Okay, so second from you, Alan Blattner at UNC Chapel Hill. All in favor of accepting the minutes, please use the Zoom menu to raise your hand. Thank you. All those opposed, please use the Zoom menu to raise your hand. And Spencer, if I could rely on you, do we have any opposed?
We do not have any opposed.
Motion passes.
Kirsten, thank you. This online format of the annual business meeting allows the immediate past president to share the good work of the year ending December 2025. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to immediate past president Kathy Bush-Hobgood, assistant vice president, actually now senior associate vice president for student affairs at Clemson University. Kathy, floor is yours.
Greetings, friends. Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. I have an opportunity today to share with you some of our association good works from 2025. 2025 was year 2 of our strategic plan, which provided us the opportunity to focus on education, developing knowledge resources, the community, and on influential leadership for our profession. The work developed by our prior 3-year Future of the Profession Task Force is infused in the strategic plan and has been fully integrated to our association-wide efforts, now led by our fabulous home office team. "2025 brought sector-wide uncertainty in higher education, to be sure, from federal, legislative, and cultural impacts. ACUHO-I provided real-time collation of member experiences through a spring and a fall straw poll and follow-up roundtables that allowed us to share information together in almost real time. It was my delight to see our community at work. We celebrated the first in-person regional summit sponsored by ACUHO-I Friends Southwest Contract. We brought together regional representatives from across the country and Canada to have substantive conversation about the connections within and beyond the association. These individuals left Louisville with a deepened relationship and actionable work plans. In terms of our ongoing impact from the regional summit, the groups left with 3 major work groups on matters of mutual importance. The first one being annual conferences, a commonality between our international association and our regional associations, education, and technology. Speaking of technology, much of our shared information is now available on a new website for the association. When you guide there, you'll be able to see educational content, annual conference content, and then information about each region. I'm also happy to report that after a year-long dialogue and editing process, all the regions have signed their new 3-year affiliation agreement with ACUHO-I. I can't wait to see what comes next on behalf of all of our members. We also focused on executive leadership in 2025. Ex officio board member Paul Ryle from Boston University served on the board and really dug deep into what are the needs of our executive board members and executive leadership. He hosted an open session at Campus Home Live, did follow-up surveys with senior housing officers to gain their perspective and feedback. This work has deep tendrils in workforce development and membership continuity, all to the end to make sure that we have the most talented senior housing officers guiding our housing programs across the country. I also thought I would share with you a little bit of some of the things that happen behind the scenes in your association. ACUHO-I is well regarded as thought leaders across the world. And this year we had a lot of interface with fraternity and sorority groups. We were invited to the annual meeting of Alpha Delta Pi in Atlanta. Some serious fun these ladies have. and presented with partner Katie Rathbone from Hanbury. And we did some deep sessions with their sorority and groups on how do you create space that supports community? How do you use your space to best build that community and tell your story as groups? We also in August debuted the results of a multi-year effort to renew and refresh our standards and competencies. Led by Dr. Amanda Mueller, the updates include the integration of standards with the prior body of knowledge and competence documents. This resource will serve our members from years to come. We had another epic year of volunteer engagement across the association. We hosted our annual virtual summit in January. We had robust discussion with all of the committee chairs and chairs-elect on time to plan for the year. Our ongoing efforts to pair a staff member with each committee so that everybody has their dedicated connections has continued to bear fruit and be a really efficient way for us to connect leaders across the field. As a strategic emphasis, it was apparent, that our modifications to the volunteer experience needed to keep up with our day jobs. To that end, the association has looked for micro volunteer opportunities. Maybe you can't lead a committee or invest in something that takes a number of hours a week, but you might be able to participate in something that allows you to be a thought leader for a few hours, or to respond to a survey, or to attend a particular event. And to that end, we'll continue to look for those opportunities. As your immediate past president, one of my responsibilities is to run our executive board nominations and elections process, which we have already begun. Linda Casper and Michael Griffel are serving as our committee chairs, one for nominations and the other for slating. So this is just a shameless plug, my friends. These are the 5 positions we'll be electing for the 2027 board, and we'll have the opportunity. Peer nominations have concluded, but anybody can apply by May 7th, and we'll look forward to reading those detailed nominations. In addition, I've been charged by President Garrett to lead a 1-year task force to engage in an internal inquiry project examining our association governance model and elections process. Doing a governance review is just a best practice that associations engage in, and the team listed here on the slide have been willing volunteers to move the process along. We'll be keeping you posted, and please do be on the lookout for opportunities to be invited into the dialogue this summer. From a global perspective, I wanted to announce that this year also brought the beginning of a new position on global development leadership. Immediate past president, Gay Prez, has come on board as a contractor and will be doing work in creating our new globalization cohesive vision. Her work will include working on our international programs and our global footprint for 2026, 2027, and 2028. Those activities will include supporting, mentoring, advising volunteers, providing strategic input and coordination for global housing training institutes, as well as coordinating with the association staff. Just to take an opportunity to thank Gay for her ongoing dedication. Speaking globally for a moment, I did have the opportunity to represent all of you at the APSA conference at the end of May last year. This is Jacob Whitetree, who many of you know, kicking off the conference as president on day 1. I had the opportunity to do a little bit of a study tour, a day long, to visit a number of campuses and experience the tremendous hospitality of our Australian colleagues. In particular, I couldn't help but call out the fabulous Tara Baker from University of Auckland in New Zealand, and Simone Gallo from Australian Catholic University in New South Wales. They made it their mission to be my guides, and for that, I will always be grateful. It was my honor to represent the association in Melbourne, and humbling indeed to be the sole representative of the United States as we work together. And yes, as many people have asked me, while in the land down under, I did eat most of the Vegemite sandwich. If you'll indulge me, lastly, just a moment of gratitude. Mary De Niro always says that it's the power of our association volunteers that makes the ACUHO-I perform above and beyond our sister associations, and that's true. But if you ask me, we should never pass up the opportunity to recognize the dedication of our home office team. Some come from housing backgrounds, but many were welcomed into the housing family through their love of the work and the teams whose efforts they coordinate on behalf of student success daily. And lastly, I would be greatly remiss if I didn't take one more opportunity to recognize the work of the 2025 Executive Board. As I told them on many occasions, we were meant to do this work together in this time and in this place for the good of our field. They were exceptional individuals to serve alongside. Thank you one more time for the opportunity to serve. Back to you, Olin.
Kathy, thank you. Thank you for that report. Thank you for your service to the association and the service that you provide in the days ahead as well. We will now go back to Kirsten to share how the financial results have followed the success and challenges of the 2025 initiatives.
Thank you, Olin. One of the first remarks I want to make is that different from many of our institutions, ACUHO-I observes a fiscal year from January 1 to December 31. So what you are about to see are our preliminary numbers. So if you look at this chart, you can see that overall assets are valued at 5.6 million, up 0.2 million from 2024. And if we look at the pie chart, the large dark blue portion of the pie is cash and investments, representing 58% of our assets. Moving clockwise, the orange portion of the pie is the investment in the ACUHO-I home office building, which is completely paid off, and that represents 27% in assets. The remainders of the slices of pie represent receivables, which includes the scope of work agreement with the ACUHO-I Foundation, and are up slightly due to the timing of invoicing and payment from some of our industry partners. Prepaid expenses, inventory, things like books, and equipment and furniture, which are almost fully depreciated. Total assets are up 0.2 million from 2024, but on par with 2023. In other words, our assets are remaining stable over the past few years, while receivables are up slightly due to timing of invoicing and payment from some of our industry partners. This slide shows different ways to evaluate this association's financial health, but overall, we're in excellent financial position. Starting with the upper left quadrant, we have a financial policy that says we must have 6 months of budgeted expenses on hand in on a net liquid asset basis. At the end of 2025, we have 7.2 months. Moving clockwise again to operating ratios, our debt to equity ratio is at 0.56, which is excellent. The lower the number, the better, and anything under 1 is great. The current ratio sits at 4.3, with anything over 1 being good. And then something to look at is program expenses are 71% of all expenses. Last year was also 71, so administrative costs have remained steady at 29%. Operating revenues decreased by 9%, while operating expenses decreased by 7%. These numbers are different from what you will see in the next slide, which is variance from the budget. Moving clockwise again to other key indicators, total assets are at 5.6 million, up 3.7 from last year, and so forth. And then the final quadrant, the debt indicators are there, and that is the economic injury disaster loan of 500,000 is in there. And as mentioned earlier, we paid off the mortgage on the home office. So our preliminary 2025 results are better than where we projected back in October, which is mostly driven by the strong performance of our investment portfolio that I'll get to on the next slide. Our practice is to budget and forecast for investments conservatively due to the inherent uncertainty in the market. Otherwise, our operating revenues and expenses came in right around where we thought we would, and so we ended up 70,000 better than what we had budgeted for the year. This slide shows budget and actuals as well as the 2024 final numbers. But here you can see that revenue is down by 8.4%. The two largest sources of revenue include memberships and Campus Home Live registrations. And then other sources of revenue are the educational events that occur throughout the year, State of the Profession, NHTI, mid-level managers, stars, and so forth. Investments we conservatively budget at 3%, and average returns over the last 10 years I have that on a different one, on a different slide. We're about 9.9, or I'm sorry, 5.5% over the last 10 years. Operating expenses were up by 5.6%. Conference revenues, while under budget, were up over prior year with more people attending, which drives up variable costs associated with those conferences. And then the strategic one-time net trailing expenses from CFO retirement and replacement and the association management system contributed to that line, as were some strategic pillar spend on future of the profession, education, and diversity items. Moving on to the investments, our investment portfolio. But before I get into the particulars, just let me tell you about the oversight of these funds. It's managed by Merrill Lynch, which has full fiduciary responsibility. There's a finance committee that meets monthly, which consists of the finance and corporate records officer, along with the CEO and CFO of the foundation, CEO and Chief Financial Officer, and the foundation finance and corporate records officer. And we meet with the Merrill Lynch representative, Scott McGraw, for quarterly investment updates. We have an investment policy that informs how we allocate our funds, and when actual returns knock the current holdings out of alignment with our investment policy, we redistribute to be in compliance. The investment portfolio, equities invested in large cap growth, large cap value, and small/mid cap value. And the top 3 sectors that we invest in are information technology, financials, and industrials. And fixed income is primarily in long-term and short-term bonds. As of December 31st, 2025, our current holdings totaled $2.97 million. And this past year, we earned 9.96% compared to 2024 at 7.1%, and 2023 when earnings were at 10.9%. We have a moderately conservative investment model, which has served us well, as I said earlier, averaging 5.5 return over the last 10 years. You may have noticed that we have far more cash on hand than the moderately conservative model, and the risk is in equity or investing in the stock market, and the less risky options are in cash and fixed income. The important piece to note here is that our equity or risk is aligned with the moderately conservative model. But for your peace of mind, fixed income and bonds are in bonds and certificates of deposit with laddered due dates to take advantage of interest rates when possible, and no one bank holds more than what the FDIC will insure. All right. And then this is to ensure that we are also within our investment policy, which is different from the moderately conservative model, only in that moderately conservative model needs to fit within our investment policy guidelines. So maybe the one thing that you're wondering about this is this last line of alternatives where our target is 5%. What you need to know is that we're not yet eligible because we need 5 million to qualify. And just know that alternative investments include companies like public-private partnerships, commodities, hedge funds, real estate, and private equity. So we need to consider carefully before we enter into that market. And that concludes my report.
Kirsten, thank you. Mary, I invite you to give the CEO report.
Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to speak to you today. It's a pleasure to be with you. I think like all of us, we went into 2025 and we were very optimistic. And then in January, the world sort of shifted a bit for us. There were new executive orders, there were changes in policies, and along the way, ACUHO-I was by your side to help you navigate through emerging issues and also some very complex issues. And we know that for our members, this was a tough year. Many of us had to rethink what we were doing and how we were doing it. But I have to say that even as some of these executive orders came down, ACUHO-I was able to face those orders head on. And we were able to think about them as we always do, that ACUHO-I is an inclusive organization, that ACUHO-I has never discriminated against anyone, and that we have always been open to all members to do all things. And so even though we know that this year has been tough, we were able to hold on to our values. We were able to hold on to how we have always operated, which we believe has been, that is just in our DNA on how our association really thinks about things. And through it all, we were looking at what was happening in the world, what was happening on campuses through the lens of the future of the profession and the 8 imperatives, as well as our strategic plan. That allowed us to be guided into knowing what we needed to do and when we needed to deviate from it so that we could be more responsive to what was going on in the world around us. ACUHO-I also had to make some hard decisions in 2025. We laid off 2 employees. We hope that you don't notice too much of the difference, but we too needed to respond to the conditions that are happening in our industry and that are happening in our marketplace. But one of the ways that we are managing through this is through our partnerships. And what I'd like to do now is to go through a couple of slides that are our strategic dashboard. This is what we share with the executive board on a regular basis on the things that they have deemed as important. And one of the first thing is forging partnerships that exchange expertise. And so you can see here that on the left for each of the slides, you'll see what our objective is. You'll see what the future of the profession imperative is, because we look at everything through that lens, the issues that we're trying to address, the opportunities, and those KPIs that we are actually holding ourselves accountable to. And so you can see that in this case, in 2025, here are a list of some of the people that we partnered with. It is not a complete list, but these are some of our major partnerships. And what's important to remember in this particular slide is we're bringing expertise into the organization, but ACUHO-I is also sharing our expertise with other associations. The next slide is around knowledge resources and telling our story using data. The Campus Housing Index has been around now for a number of years, but we are just thrilled that this year in 2025, we had a 12.3% increase in engagement. That means that more of you were submitting your data. And of course, data tells the story. It allows us to respond when people want to cut our resources. It allows us to respond when we need to advocate for more resources. And it allows us to tell our stories. One of the big initiatives that happened in 2025 was that we took on a partner with Brailsford and Dunleavy, and they have helped us a great deal in reporting, making meaning out of the data, and participation. But it's also important to know that no individual school's information is shared directly. It is all anonymous. And so as a collective, as an industry, we are able to report out. In addition to the Campus Housing Index, which is one of our pillars in our resources that we offer to members. Let me just share for those of you who are competitive and you want to know how your region is doing with the Campus Housing Index. As I mentioned, we had a 12% increase. We've released reports like the live in staff educational requirements, vaccine policies, and a host of other things. And we have representation from 42 states. And here are the regions that have the most participation. And you can see in this particular year's data, we have 67% public with 33% private, and the average capacity of people who are reporting have a bed capacity of 4,800 and an enrollment of 1,600. Next slide, please. And here's some other resources that our members are using that they tell us are important to them. Certainly the talking stick. We've had timely topics around AI, design, enrollment, and high impact practices. And in addition, we also had our journal launched a new platform and themed issue on student belonging, which we know is so important, and our standards and competencies that Kathy talked about. These are all the resources that allow our members to reflect and that have resonated with each of you. And as you think about 2026, what the resources are that would be helpful, please let us know. Please let us know. We have expertise, or we can go find expertise to help us create resources that are meaningful to you. The next strategy or initiative that I want to just spend a little bit of time on is engagement around our practices, our affinity groups, our job roles, etc. We know the policy changes and increased student needs have led to greater responsibility for many of our members. And for that means that not as many people can find as much time or the same kind of time to engage with the association. And so we have really thought about this deeply on ways that, people can be involved without having a 3-year commitment. And Kathy talked about the micro volunteering opportunities. We have expanded collaboration with the regions, which you heard about. We have tried to find opportunities for thoughtful spaces for conversations around the current culture and the time of year issues of things that are happening all the time. And to think more intentionally about how to change processes that serve members. And so some of the outcomes or things that have resulted in this particular initiative is around the regional subcommittees, the regional planning committee, continued efforts to communicate in different ways, not only with our regions. Kathy showed you the regional pages on the ACUHO-I website that include all of their offerings, their educational offerings, what's going on, but also through our own volunteer leadership recruitment drive, our content conferences, our webinar series. We are finding that more and more members are engaging with us, but it's just in different ways. They're coming in, they're using their expertise, they're using their thought leadership, and really finding ways to give back and to make a difference in campus housing. Another focus for us are our members who are early career professionals and those who might be at under-resourced institutions. And, at any given point in time, I think all of us are at an under-resourced institution, depending on what's going on in our department, what's going on in our unit, et cetera. And, we know that there are the haves and the have-nots in this world of funding, et cetera. And we know that there have been budget freezes and travel freezes. And so we are trying to find different ways, more unique ways, so that we can continue to bring programs to our members, regardless of where you are, through virtual symposia and institutes, and through cross collaborations that allow for deeper conversations and richer content. And on the right here in the KPIs, you can see some of the things that we have done this year, but that by no means is what we are limited to what we have done in the past. And here are some of the putting some numbers against our webinars and roundtables. You can see over 3,100 people have engaged in this. We talk a lot about the standards and competencies because it was a huge lift, and it makes such a big difference in how our practitioners think about the work they're doing and what they aspire to be, and also to set the standard for the rest of the industry. And finally, we rolled out a new AI assistant to support our knowledge access across the profession in our online community. And speaking of engagement, we had 14 conferences, institutes, and symposium, not all of those in person. We had over 150 virtual engagements. 7,000 of you all participated. We relaunched our residential education conference, really focusing in on the key trends in curriculum, conduct, well-being, and leadership in residents' life. We had 11% growth over 2024, and nearly 30% of the St. Louis content series was devoted to that. So it was a big year for us in residents' life, but it was a big year for us in all of our educational programming. And I do talk about volunteers a lot because, you are the core of what we do, how we do our work. You are the thought leaders. You tell us what is important. You tell us where we need to zig when we're zagging and how to become more relevant and more meaningful. And so here are just some numbers. We track our volunteer hours. We think it's a good practice to really understand how much of our work is being driven by volunteers. And we know that we had this year about 9,600 hours. That equates to about 5 additional staff people. And so for all of that, we thank you. There's 70 active volunteer groups. That is our affinity groups, that's our committees, that's our subcommittees. And we have over 200 plus unique monthly contributors, people who are doing things on a regular basis. And all of our accomplishments are a combination of great volunteers and staff. And Campus Home Live, it is our flagship event. We are delighted that our numbers held true from 24 and 25. We're delighted that as of this time last year, our numbers are increased for Orlando. But it is a real value. It's when people come together. It is a way for engagement. We have over 30 hours of education that people can embark in. And it's not only learning from our colleagues, but it's also learning from other experts who come to our conference to share information that we need to know. So with that, we hope we see you in Orlando this year. We are always looking for your input. So if there is something that you're interested in, let us know. I did receive one question, advanced question, and somebody wanted to know what we did with the slush fund from Campus Home Live. And I'll just say that we really don't have a slush fund. Campus Home Live really does help us support many of our institutes, our programming, the things that allow us to bring programming to you on a very, very regular basis, and in most cases, weekly. So with that, I will turn it back to our esteemed president, Olin Garrett.
Mary, thank you. And thank you also for your leadership over the course of the past year and the leadership of our staff, very important. I'd like to turn the floor to Tim Touchette, Assistant Dean of Student Affairs at Brandeis University and the 2025 Chair of the ACUHO-I Foundation for the Foundation Report. Tim.
Thanks, Olin. I appreciate it. So I'm here today to speak about our year last year and what a year it was. I have a lot of important things to tell you about, and it's all due to the folks that you're seeing on the screen here. This group of people was so committed to the foundation. It's something I heard all throughout the year at the different events that I attended. It is that folks are aware of these people. More folks in our profession know about the foundation, but we still have some work to do. So it was a great year, and I'm so excited to see what comes this year under Crystal's leadership. And I'm just appreciative of everyone here that served in some capacity helping support the foundation. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what 2025 brought us. We did a lot of things, and we were able to meet or exceed all of our goals, starting out with just the incredible support of the community and folks that are committed to what we're doing and supporting the profession, but also just supporting each other in the process. So through community support, we were able to achieve one of the most successful annual weeks of giving ever, and we were able to exceed our $42,000 goal by raising $65,000. And that is thanks to just everyone here, but also thanks to some very strategic partnerships with some of our industry friends who have really been able to lift us up. And it's also helped us create some new relationships that maybe didn't exist before or exist in a new way now. So we are just so thankful for all of our corporate friends that help us, and also for all of you and our community members that are supporting the foundation. One of the other things that you saw last year on the big stage was reimagining the Parthenon recognition. There's a lot of feedback from folks in our profession who are attending Campus Home Live that they wanted to see something a little bit different. And so we partnered with some of our marketing friends at Mechanic and recreated that entire presentation process. And it went from one of the most commented on sessions to one of the most celebrated sessions at Campus Home Live. So it definitely worked. It was a little overwhelming, I think, for some of the folks getting the recognition, but that process is overwhelming in general for them because they're receiving such a well-celebrated award. So we will continue that under Crystal's leadership this year and look to make some adjustments as well as we head into Campus Home Live in Orlando. We also were able to finally re-tier the giving levels for the foundation. And this is something you'll learn a little bit more. We teased them last year at Campus Home Live, set some goals, and we were able to learn from what we did and modify some of the goals and some of the ways we're thinking about building people into these different lines, but also encouraging them to step forward and step up in some ways so that you're not just stuck in one of these. You're valued. We are able to engage with you and potentially move you throughout the levels over time. And so we've created these 5 new levels. One of them, the individual major donor, is kind of a cornerstone of the foundation and has been for many years. But we've created some new levels to engage with people all across. And that also has a lot to do with our corporate friends too, who are now engaged even more personally with the foundation, not just giving as a company, but giving as a person too. And so this has really opened the door for us to a whole new level of community engagement that we're really excited about. We were able to welcome 3 corporate major donors last year, 4 people into the Legacy Society, which is that brand new top level of giving. We had 22 individual major donors, which is not easy to do, by the way. It's really hard to hit some of these metrics because this is a commitment not only for you, but for your families. And I know on behalf of the foundation, but also me personally, how much that means to us that people committed the way they did. We were also able to welcome 2 Trailblazers, 2 Pathfinders, and 4 at the builder level. And we've been working really closely with those folks to see where they will go next. So thank you again for contributing. We also had 2 endowments that you heard about if you were at Campus Home Live. And after that, we've been talking about them not only on online, but also in connections as well. So the Dr. Carmel Vance Endowment in honor of Scott R. Bowden, and the AIMHO Endowment, which is expanding all the long-term support that we have or that we will need for our community through some of our scholarship work and supporting some of the strategic initiatives of ACUHO-I. So other things I want to talk about, we have a slide that matches the association slide and just kind of talking about the different ways that money was spent and the support that's given. Sometimes this can be a little overwhelming to see. So the basics are that there are 4 major areas where money is being spent from the association. And you also heard in the report earlier that there's a strategic partnership and an agreement between the association and the foundation to support certain efforts. So this kind of tells a little bit of that story here. We're invested in our knowledge resources. We're invested in education. One great example of education investment is the Student Affairs certification. We're also invested in both the community and in the association, and the foundation are invested in that together. And together we share some responsibilities with some management positions, but also the Leadership Academy. And then one of the other areas is influential leadership. And a lot of that support helps make the future of the profession as successful as it is year to year. So some of the high-level highlights, again, we had about 300,000 invested in mission-related programs. And so you've heard a lot about the different offerings. Mary just talked about so many of the different events that we've had throughout the year. One of the things that the foundation really doubled down on last year was trying to make sure that anybody that wanted to get to an event that ACUHO-I was hosting, we could try to help them, if not get them there altogether. And many of you know that professional development money has taken a hit in some departments and is often the first thing to go. So folks asking for scholarships, there's definitely more of that happening. And so we were making sure that we had a process to get as many of those awarded as possible. And so last year we were giving out around $62,000 in professional development awards, and it is a great story to be able to tell for possible donors in the future about direct support for people to be able to travel and to learn and to go to these different events, or to be on a symposium or a webinar, or anything that can help move the needle as far as professional development goes. $157,000 was invested to drive research that informs policy and practice. This is all providing value to the overall industry and giving back directly to each of us as a community member. There was about $78,000 created for Pathways and for Learning Connection, and that's empowering professionals to grow and collaborate. Our foundation's net revenue outperformed budget expectations, similar to what Kirsten was presenting on before. The market was good this year, so we did quite well, but also it was really driven by some strong fundraising efforts and cutting back on some operational expenses, which allowed us to really outperform where we were thinking we were going to go. But as Mary said, things are changing at every moment. So investment generated positive returns, strengthening the ongoing support for our educational programs, research awards, and strategic initiatives. And that all goes right back into investing in our profession. Fiscal policies continue to be actively monitored. We're always looking at ways similar to the association to make sure that we're following the rules and that we're supporting best practices. And that's something that a lot of our community members and committee members rather and volunteers are helping us do alongside our financial friends. And this is just a slide to match the association with our assets. We have about $2.5 million in assets. The big part of the pie is in cash and investments, and that is restricted, so that can only be used for certain things. And then we've got the unrestricted side, which is where cash and investments also sit. That is a little bit easier to use. The easiest way to think about this is the restricted side are the endowments, which have very specific rules about where that money can be used and how it can be spent. And then unrestricted supports things like operational expenses and doesn't have the restrictions that the restricted funds have. And then our pledges and accounts receivable is also unrestricted, and that's 17%. So it's almost half of each is restricted and unrestricted. And the 10-year mission-related spend, this is a slide that we talk a little bit about more in depth with folks on the board. This is giving you just an idea over the last 10 years of how much money has been spent in supporting some of the mission-related things that we committed to do and has been handed down from chair to chair. And so there's some incredible support on here, and the dollars that have been spent are all fundraised dollars, which is what makes it even more special and meaningful as far as giving back to the foundation, but also giving back to the profession. So having some dedicated support for positions that are co-funded at ACUHO-I, research grants, the Campus Housing Index, which has become such a critical part of the work that we do. Some NESE study on student success, that's a survey collaboration that was done. Other positions in ACUHO-I that were also funded. The Leadership Academy, which is ongoing. When you move over to the education side, you're seeing that the foundation is supporting our online learning and database courses, some global education, continued education on ACUHO-I membership benefits, just helping try to bring new and maybe lapsed members back into the association. Future of the profession, we continue to support our efforts there, NHTI, SHTI, also the mid-level startup, sustainability education, and the housing internship program support. And then just the part that I love talking about the most is the awards and being able to support people directly to attend things through the awards listed there. And there's so many new things coming in 2026 that will help people even more that we're truly excited about. This is your 2026 board here under the direction of our chair, Krista Lopez. There's some new folks that you'll see on the board. I encourage you at any chance you get to stop by. If you're seeing them at conferences, please say hi. If you happen to be in the home office, you can obviously say hi to Mary. Laurel would love to say hi to you as well. She is the backbone of support for our foundation. She keeps us all organized and motivated, and she truly is an asset to this organization and does such great work both behind the scenes and in the front, right out with us when we're talking to people about giving and how important giving is. I just want to say again, thank you so much for a fantastic year as your foundation chair. It has been an honor to serve in the role. I've learned so much this year, and I look forward to continuing to work with you all in the upcoming year as it's transitioned over to Crystal now. And if I can give Crystal a plug, if you'd like to make a gift to one of the Parthenon candidates, please do so. If you have questions about who they are, you can contact Crystal or Laurel in the home office. I know I will see you all in Orlando in June, and make sure you save the date for this year's annual week of giving, which will be September 21st through the 25th, with lots of surprises to come. Thank you so much for the time, and I'll turn it back to you, Olin.
Tim, thank you. And as everybody is well aware, we would not be able to do the work of ACUHO-I without the extensive work that the foundation has done. It's been a stellar year. So Tim, thank you. And thank you for your service and leadership. It is really appreciated. And we're looking forward to Crystal's leadership as well. At this time, I would like to call for any new business from the floor. If there is any new business to report or to question, please use the Zoom panel to raise your hand at this time.
We have no raised hands at this time.
Very good, Spencer. Thank you. With that, we will then conclude the formal part of our meeting. And at this time, we will recognize both our deceased and retired members since our last business meeting. At this time, I'd like to recognize as members who have passed, Melanie Ibig Lawson of Indiana University, Indianapolis, Sue Matthews of the University of California, Santa Cruz, and Jacob Semengo at Northwest University, South Africa. Please join me in a moment of silence to recognize those that have passed. Thank you. At this time, I'd also like to recognize those members who have retired since our last annual business meeting. On the screen, Mark Hudson at Eastern Illinois University, Jody Stone of Eastern Illinois University, Dr. Shannon Staten of Florida State University, and Deb Schmidt-Rogers from Northwestern University. And we've also received Pam Schreiber at University of Washington, Kim Posner at Ringling School of Art and Design, and Gabe Perez at the University of Virginia. Congratulations to all those who have retired. Thank you for an amazing career and for your service to the profession. We are wishing you all the best in your next chapter. With that, if there is no additional business, I want to thank you for joining us for today's annual business meeting. Thank you for being here. We will adjourn this meeting at 4:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're looking forward to seeing you at Campus Home Live in just 2 short months. Thank you, everyone.